Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, sitting here in the end of March, and we figured, hey, why not put out the All-American team going into 2025? Want to clarify, this is your predictions of the All-American team, certainly not mine. The minute I looked at this, Dill, I got some problems with it, and I'm sure many of y'all listening have some problems with it as well, and that's kind of the beauty of having these discussions in the middle of March. There's a lot of different ways these conversations, these predictions you might say could go. Y'all let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, you start at the top quarterback position. DJ Lagway first team, John Mateer second team. I don't think you're going to get much pushback with DJ Lagway as a potential first-team All-American quarterback. He's arguably the quarterback with the highest ceiling that we see in the country. The question is, does he take that step going into 2025, and does he have enough around him? I mean, it sounds like Florida's going to be relying on transfer portal wide receiver in J. Michael Sturdivant, true freshman wide receiver in Dallas Wilson. I do think that offensive line will be just fine. My bigger concern here is John Mateer. And Dill, it has nothing to do with John Mateer as a quarterback. I think he's one of the best quarterbacks in the sport going into 2025. Comes into Oklahoma. Ben Arbuckle coming with him. Love that. I actually am starting to like what I'm hearing from the wide receiver position at Oklahoma. But, man, is the offensive line good enough? And if it's not, it's going to be hard for John Mateer to be a all-American caliber quarterback if the offensive line struggles again in the 2025 year.
And that will be the fundamental concern. The more, though, I go back and watch what he was doing at Washington State, the more I think he's just got a more complete game than probably Lenora Sellers and Cade Klubnik. Those are the two guys I was kind of debating. I think they were kind of my next two in, if you will.
Yep.
Lenora Sellers probably needs to show something else. And I'm kind of confident he'll do it. And I do think that might happen. But I look at how reliant I think Oklahoma is going to be on John Mateer, both from running the football and throwing the football. And Deion Burks is awesome. So I think that'll help a lot to have a healthy Deion Burks all year. I think he's going to be put in a position to play a little bit more hero ball than anyone else. And I do think in pure quarterback, he is.
And Dill, one other thing is he's a really good athlete, getting himself out of trouble, of which he might need to do a decent amount of in the 2025 year. This is, I mean, really the story of Oklahoma. Like, you tell me this offensive line is solid and John Mateer's second team All-American quarterback, this Oklahoma team's much more dangerous than people appreciate. The question is, it's not about John Mateer, it's what's around him, but he does have that skill set, kind of different from a guy like John Mateer or Garrett Nussmeier, I should say, who it needs to be good around him. John Mateer can be the engine of this Oklahoma offense, and I think they're going to treat him like the engine of the Oklahoma offense. Running backs, a lot of different names you could throw out here. Jeremiah Love, I think that's a consensus pick to me.
I feel like he's separated himself from the pack. He is really, really good complete running back in my mind.
Yeah, best running back in the country. I think a lot of college football fans would probably agree with that. Isaac Brown coming in as the second team All-American. Now, there will be people that laugh at you, and I'm not going to be one of them here. I'm going to laugh at you at a couple other positions. Ain't going to be at running back. Is Isaac Brown going to have enough production and enough carries? Is Louisville going to be good enough up front for him to be a second-team All-American running back? That certainly is a question mark. But, man, this kid has a ton of juice. True freshman last year, 7 yards per carry, I believe. Probably the fastest running back in the country. This kid's special, and not enough people are talking about him.
That is almost a little bit what I did. I look at his numbers from last year's averaging such a good yards per carry average. He was a really productive, especially as he got down the stretch and was playing a little bit more. I don't know if there's a better home run hitter at the running back spot than Isaac Brown heading into this year. And then I look at the other good running backs. A lot of them are going to be splitting, like Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. They split almost 50-50. And do I think Nick Singleton's maybe a better running back than Isaac Brown? Might be, but they're going to split those carries right down the middle. I feel like I think you'd say similar things, frankly, about guys, the Miami running back room and the Texas running back room. There's some really good guys in those rooms, CJ Baxter, etc. But they're going to split a lot of carries. I look at Nate Frazier was the other one, frankly, that I was really leaning possibly to. I do think Nate Frazier could dominate that Georgia backfield. The question will be is, can Georgia run the ball a little better than they did last year? Because they weren't particularly good with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good running backs. And the one thing you want to see from Isaac Brown, and I'm not going to get up here and like a film study of Isaac Brown here. You want to see a little bit more physicality. And that's what excites me the most is what happens going into year. Again, he was an 18-year-old kid running rampant in the ACC. Well, what happens if he does bring that physicality game in 2025? You're looking at a real difference maker at the running back spot. The wide receiver position, Jeremiah Smith, lock. Ryan Williams, lock. Deion Burks, I'm not necessarily going to get up here and argue with. My bigger problem that I see with your list is in the 2 deep here. Brian Wesco, I like Brian Wesco, and I like Cade Klubnik throwing him the football, but I also like TJ Moore and I like Antonio Williams. And you look at Cam Coleman, you have Eric Singleton coming in as well. Those are all really good wide receivers. The one, Dill, that I will push back on heavily is Aaron Anderson.
I knew you would. And I don't need to hear your opinion.
He's wide receiver 3 on his team.
I'm not 100% sure that's going to be true. I look at what he was doing last year. I think he was probably the most dependable wide receiver. And it was close with him in Lacey last year. But Aaron Anderson was awesome out of the slot. I think his ability to hit a couple of big plays down the field and stretch the field a little bit, also be able to work really well with the ball in his hands. I would not be surprised in the least, frankly, to see Aaron Anderson be the number 1 wide receiver, or at least lead that team in yards and catches next year, because I do think him and Jared Nussmeier have something there.
This is not an anti-Aaron Anderson take. It's a little bit more of a pro. It's a pro Barry. Maybe it was a little bit, but it's not me not liking Aaron Anderson. In fact, I think he's an extremely under the radar player for LSU. I love those 3 wide receivers. I mean, Nick Anderson, Barry Brown in the portal, and Aaron Anderson, not to mention guys like Hilton. That LSU wide receiver room is way better than it was in the 2024 year. When I'm looking at especially some of those slot wide receivers that I would want to include, Eric Singleton at Auburn is a difference maker in so many ways. I mean, that's probably one of my, why would I lean a guy like Eric Singleton over Aaron Anderson? Eric Singleton's a little bit more multidimensional. And Aaron Anderson's kind of
I think that is a relic of the 2023 season take. Aaron Anderson last year, if you look at what he was doing, he was catching the ball at all 3 levels as well. Eric Singleton maybe a little bit more like top end speed and like juice, maybe. But what he was doing with Garrett Nussmeier and what I think they could do this year with the relationship they had and his ability to catch the ball in traffic, I do think he's frankly going to lead this team in targets in yards for LSU.
I'll give you another one here. Makai Lemon at USC. I think
him and Jacoby Lane I wrestled with. I'll admit that. Jacoby Lane, I wish he was more productive, but like his best.
Well, the thing is with both of those two is USC's not going to waste as much time trying to force the ball to a guy like Zachariah Branch and Deuce Robinson. Like, why I'm so optimistic about both those wide receivers in 2025 is Lincoln Riley, I think, because, Zachariah Branch, Deuce Robinson, 5-star guys, obviously getting a lot of NIL resources. I think there was like a little bit of a force to get them involved on the football field when it was very clear that Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane were those guys. Especially if you see a true freshman wide receiver in Hassan Longstreet, you want your guy that can just get open and give you juice after the catch. Makai Lemon. Makai Lemon is my Xavier Estrepo from last year, where it's like nobody's going to talk about him because it ain't always flashy, but he's a really good wide receiver. The
probably
other
a little bit better of an athlete too, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. Probably the other one, Casey Concepcion at Texas A&M, especially with Mike Hudson leaving. I feel like they're going to.
I wish we didn't see such a drop last year. And obviously NC State was bad. So it wasn't necessarily all his fault, but like he did kind of fall off a little bit. And I kind of want to see what he is with this Texas A&M team and where he kind of fits. It's a lot to.
I think he's going to fit great. I think Coach Colin Klein's going to have a field day using this kid in so many different ways. Now, the other thing there is I think Terry Buss is going to be a guy for Texas A&M too. All right, tight end position. Do you already know my criticism with it? I mean, it's not a knock on a guy like
That's
Max
just because
Clare.
people don't watch Cal, and I gotta be honest, I was doing a little bit of digging on what tight ends like to pick, because I think Max Clare, to me, frankly, is a step above everyone else. I look at how complete he is,
Oh,
really good blocker, really good route runner. I do think, to me, he's consensus best tight end in the country heading into 25. And next up, there's not a ton of proven guys. I mean, Jolie at NC State's a
What
really
about
good
Kenny
player.
Sadiq? Kenny and
Yeah,
Sadiq,
he wasn't like
I
he
know.
wasn't really the starter last year. Like, you still
I
need to see him as like the guy and what he can do as the number one guy.
Yeah, Dylan, it's March. I'm making a little projection here. Can I just sell the people and kind of, because I know the Oregon fans have listened to me talk about this kid for the last really 6 months, really last 12 months, ever since after his freshman year. He was targeted only 23 times, caught 22 catches last year. So it's just a lock when he's getting targets. Now, a lot of them are kind of in the quick game. I give you that. This is somebody that came in at 220 pounds, was a 10-7 guy in the 100-meter dash. Took an adjustment period his freshman year, put on some good weight. Go back and watch him in 2024. Really solid run blocker. I thought he should have gotten on the football field more for Oregon. And look, Dill, Oregon is going to try to replace guys like Tez Johnson, guys like Trayshawn Holden. Kenyon Sadiq, I think, is going to be one of those tight ends. And you don't say this for many tight ends, right, Dill? And Max Clare, you're probably not saying it for him at Ohio State. There's not many tight ends that you're trying to run your offense through. You saw it with Colston Loveland. That was more just because Michigan didn't have any other pass catchers. You did see it with Brock Bowers at Georgia. I don't
You
mean to get
saw
up here and
Tyler
say
Warren, like, again, you see, but
very good
frankly,
example.
it's not typically a great thing when your tight end is the guy who's
Yes,
running the offense through it. It
I
hasn't been
agree.
terribly effective, I
But
feel
I
like, for
do
most.
think Kenyon Sadiq is going to get a little bit of that treatment where it's like we just got to figure out how to get this kid the football, because you talk about tight ends after the catch. There's nobody better in the country than what Kenyon Sadiq brings. Cannot wait to see what year three. He's an Idaho kid. And so I think there was some adjustment periods that have to be made going from playing ball up in Idaho to coming playing in the Big Ten at Oregon. I think Kenyon Sadiq has a monster year. Probably
And again, I
emerges.
don't necessarily disagree. It's just like, again, you give those stats. You only caught 22 balls last year. A lot of it was behind the line and kind of
Yep.
5 yards in. It's like
Yep. That's
Jack
because
Andrews, if you watch him play, like, just the savviness, the ability to work the middle of the field, sit himself down in zones, be open pretty consistently, in a really, really underrated athlete. I think he started as a walk-on at Cal and then really kind of got it rolling. He'll probably never get the due he deserves in the national media because A, it's Cal, B, he's walk-on. Like, all those kind of things conspire against him getting the credit I think he deserves. But you go watch him play. He's super productive. He's really, really understands how to play that position and get himself open in the middle of the field.
And Dill, that's something
Beyond the
that's
point.
so important. That it's something that's so important. Tight ends understanding the sport. I think sometimes, especially in the landscape of like recruiting, we get so hung up on size speed combination. And look, it helps when you're bigger, stronger, faster than most people on the football field. There's no doubt about that. Look at Brock Bowers. Wasn't the biggest, was pretty damn fast though. His feel for the position was incredible. I think you say the same thing for Tyler Warren, who's a former quarterback coming out of high school. Say the same thing for a guy like Colston Loveland. That's the separator. Like those tight ends that have really good feel. And if Jack has it, I'm not going to get up here and tell you I've watched.
And I don't know. The issue is I don't know that he has like the Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Brock Bowers, like athleticism and upside, maybe. But again, I'm kind of looking. I don't think there are a ton of tight ends heading into this year that I'm like, yeah, he's Brock Bowers, he's Colston Loveland, he's Tyler Warren. There just isn't that guy. Max Clare is the only one to me.
All right, offensive tackle position. This is a position where there's a lot of question marks. Like last year we had like Kelvin Banks and Will Campbell and Josh Connerly. It's just like so many tight ends that we knew were really solid.
Tackles.
They're did what I say.
Tight ends.
Tackles. I look at the tackle position. There's not a ton of like proven guys. There's a lot of young guys like Jordan Seaton going into year 2. Jordan Seaton was really good towards the end of 2024. I agree with that. Josiah Thompson was really bad early in 2024, played really good late in the season. Like those are guys that really could make names for themselves, but there's not a ton of guys that you look at and say like, yeah, those are locked top 10 picks in the NFL draft in 12 months, besides a guy like Francis Mauigoa, who I think is an absolute hammer, and he
He's
probably
the only tackle who I look at like, oh, if he went into the draft last year, he probably would
big.
have been a top 10 pick. I'm kind of with you. The tackle play doesn't feel like it's about to be as elite. And again, we'll see. There might be some young guys like Josiah Thompson, Jordan Seaton. I think if you just take like the back half of their years or maybe
Yeah,
back 25% of
right.
their years, both had unbelievable years. Jordan Seaton really, really good for a good chunk of that year. So I
Yes.
think those two I really like. Caden Proctor's a guy you're looking at. You still want more from. I think like you've seen some really good
My
moments.
my
You've seen some really not so good moments.
my biggest concern with Caden Proctor is that like there was like almost no step in the right direction in year 2 for him. You know, he was solid as a freshman. I think everyone was excited for year 2, and then it was like, all right, he was solid again, but I didn't see like a lock top 5 pick that I think a lot of people expected.
And then you got another guy out in Georgia, Ernest Green, who, if you take the 2023 year, at least I was
Nowhere
thinking,
close
oh,
right
that's a lock for a top 10 pick the year after. And last year in 24 just really seemed to struggle. So, like, there are some talented tackles out there. There's just not a ton of guys who are super dependable aside from Maui Noah. He's the only guy I'm looking at like he is a monster. Trevor
Interior off.
Gooseby, he also at Texas may prove us all wrong because
Yeah,
in
Trevor
the small
Gooseby.
sample size we got from him, he was awesome.
Yeah, Trevor Gooseby probably not a guy you can put on the list because you didn't see enough, but I'm kind of with you on him. Interior offensive line. I don't see a
So
ton
good.
of problems that I have, right? Emmanuel Pregnon, DJ Campbell, Micah Morris, man, like not really a full-time guy for Georgia because they were good there. Micah Morris is a dog. Jaden Roberts is very good. The only player that I look at and say, and I'm going to sound like just this massive Oregon homer at this point, but Poncho, center up
I
in
knew that was
Oregon.
coming too.
But like, am I wrong?
Nick Dawkins, if you watch that Oregon game, if I'm
It's
just
not
gonna
a
give a
shot
little
at
plug
those
for
guys.
him,
You're acting like I'm taking
dominant,
shit.
dominant football game. He's just such a steady guy. He's been around for a while. I
Yeah.
look at like what you want in your center, like Nick Dawkins.
Now,
He's kind of
this again, like where I'm coming from here is like, and this is not a shot at Nick Dawkins, Jake Slaughter, who I think is gonna be a redshirt senior. Like, I feel like we know what those guys are, and you're probably not gonna see a massive step in the right direction. Like Poncho played spot duty as a freshman behind Powers Johnson, was good when he had to come in. Thought was really dang solid in his first year starting going in 2024. I think he could emerge as one of the best centers in the country going into 2025. It's not a shot at Nick, though. It was more just trying to give some love to some players that I think are also probably deserve to be
yeah.
on the
You're just
list.
hunting for these Oregon guys who have a lot of promise, and we have not necessarily seen it. Poncho,
No,
we have
see,
seen.
that's
He's
baloney because
been
but
very
also
good.
for Kenny Sadiq, but also for Kenny, you're acting like these guys haven't been good players.
He
And
caught
got me all
22
worked up.
passes last year.
For a tight end, like that's not a crazy low number
That
for a sophomore tight
maybe
end.
fair.
Oh, and okay, while we're on the tight end position, Dill, Elijah Lofton at Miami. And again, you probably can't put him on that list because you didn't see it, but I mean, he was playing behind. I mean, we were talking about like a really, really good tight end in Elijah Arroyo. I think Elijah Lofton, from what I'm hearing from him in spring practice, this is back-to-back spring
But he'll
practice.
be an interesting one how they use him because he's like doesn't really fit the mold of a tight end. A little
But
bit shorter. Again,
he's a dog run blocker. Graded out, Dill,
well,
PFF
again,
grades.
it's just be interesting what they do with him because he's kind of
Yeah,
got a
but
weird skill set.
I think that benefits him. Like, hey, we're gonna use you, we're gonna split you out wide. We're gonna use you as an H back. He is another one of those guys that, especially with Miami, where it's like, hey, we got question marks about how many pass catchers we trust. All right, well, we got a really good tight end. Let's really work our tail off to find ways to get him the football. Elijah Lofton, another name that I would add. Y'all let it fly in the comments section. Probably left off some names, Dill. I tried to look at it and made sure I shouted out all the players that deserve the shout outs. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.